It's exhausting.
Yes.
Talking about all the things that you do.
Well, when you put it that way, I should be like huddled on the floor.
Why? What? This is. I mean, I'll go straight to it here. Why do you do so much?
What is wrong with you?
No, I mean, you do it all very well. These are all hit shows, and your book did really well, and you were amazing. But why? Tell me, where does that come in you to want to do all of this?
I suppose like a robust run of therapy would probably unlock the real answer to that question. I'm sure there's a real answer to that question.
You've not thought about the real answer?
No. Well, maybe I have. When I do my podcast, I'm always trying to pull real answers out of people, but that's to deflect the attention from my own real answers. I think the short answer is that I love creating, and I love making art, and I love being engaged, and I feel like I'm more effective and more prolific, and I generate more material when I am at like feeling the constant kind of like high adrenaline penny taste of panic. So if I've got 20 things to do, I'll get you 19 overnight. If I have one thing to do, I'll get it to you next summer.
If you want to get something done, give it to a busy person.
Yes, absolutely. And I also think, I mean, from a creativity standpoint, there are a lot of guys who are really precious with their work, and so they take their time, and being thoughtful is important, but and kind of being methodical in practice can be important. But I also feel like people can get stymied by consideration. You know what I mean? By like really considering and reconsidering and reevaluating the work. And I feel like the more work I generate, the more likely I am to generate great work. Some of it's not going to be great, and that's okay. For me, I feel like voluminous art will generate more shots at great art versus I'm going to...
Not just a bunch of mediocre stuff.
No. You might turn out something... I feel like radicalism and aggression are more likely to deal surprises. So for me, the mistakes are as important to me as the wins. And I always talk about this from a stand-up perspective. Killing never makes you funny. Destroying makes you a jerk. Follow that, bitches, and you drop the mic and you stomp off stage and get drunk. You know what I mean? But when you bomb, you walk away and you reconsider every choice you've made to that point. You write and you rewrite and you get better. So it's only the failures that make you strong. Well, this is your
thing about failure. I want to get to that.
Yeah.
But when you said operating with a sense of panic, were you kidding, or do you sometimes
have
that?
Like a low level kind of like a fight or flight vibe pretty much going on all day,
and that
every
helps
day.
you.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, people call that stress, and it can be very stressful, and I'm working now to manage my stress a little more. Like, I work pretty much 7 days a week. So I work on the TV shows Monday through Thursday, and I'll get on a plane on Thursday night and then perform Friday and Saturday and come home Sunday morning. And the other day I came home like on a really early flight, landed at like 10:30. So my husband and I went to a farmer's market. And I was like, oh, this is what people do.
Yeah.
Like just walk around drinking coffee and stuff, not crapping their pants because they've missed a deadline. This must be what it's like to be human. So I am trying to do more of that. Yeah. But I also feel like, God, this is...
Well, you're doing a great job.
You're kind.
Of doing that because you're sketchy. I mean, I'm being sarcastic.
No,
I'm not being kind. You're doing an incredibly terrible, deficient job of trying to make it to the farmer's market.
This is a platitude. I know it's platitudinal, but I do feel like life is very brief and could be over at any minute. And if you haven't done the stuff you wanted to do, it's your own fault.
You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
I'm asking you these questions because I feel the same way.
Yeah, you got to
But
get out there.
I do want to get to the farmer's market more. I just don't know how to do it.
No, I mean...
I love the farmer's market.
The farmer's market is awesome, right? There's like baby carrots and little kids and the hippie wants you to sign something every time you go, right?
As long as I can read the book that I need to read for the next day's show at the farmer's market, everything will be fine.
Here's what I used to... I did a television series here a couple of years ago and called 13. It was on Showcase, and it was a great show. It was super fun to do. But I would literally get home at 9 at night or 10 at night and have to be back in a car at 5 the next morning. So I would get into the bathtub. This might work for you, Jian. I'd get into the bathtub with my dinner, like I'd put it all on a plate, and my script for the next day, and I would bathe, eat, and learn my lines all at one time.
Yes, you're getting things done.
There'd be floating, masticated food in the bathwater, and all my pages would be wet.
That's really disgusting.
But I was,
Also, my father would then say, please work harder, even harder. Faster bath.
So when you wake up in the morning, do you have this? This is a good question. I'm turning the tables on you.
Don't turn.
I just had this with someone else. Do you ever wake up in the morning and think, I'm lazy. I should have gotten up an hour before now. I'm never going to get it all done. I'm a terrible person. Do you ever have that thing?
That feeling never escapes me throughout the day. What do I wake up with that?
Find my tribe.
That's all I have.
We're in the same tribe.
That's the only feeling I have.
That's my constant emotional state is, oh God, I've blown it.
Of course.
But, artists are all different. I just feel like
Well, for me, it comes, I mean, I love them, but it comes from my parents too.
Right.
I'm a first generation immigrant kid. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
But where is that coming from,
Well, my father's from the old country, Pittsburgh, and grew up with his father died in World War II. He was single mom raised him, and he's my father is. It came from my father. My parents are both very hardworking, but my father is the kind of guy who would if his house was on fire, he would get sticks and marshmallows. Do you know what I mean? He's like, there is no complaining, there is no wasting time, there is no feeling sorry for oneself. I broke my arm one summer, and he made me ride my bike back from camp. And then I think he took me to the hospital 2 days later when it started to turn blue. And it wasn't being mean. He was just like, let's see what happens. But meanwhile, you have stuff to do, and I'm not going to treat you like a baby. And he made me mentally tough, and he also made me hunted. And I feel hunted at all times, but I'm hunted.
Hunted or haunted?
Hunted by not haunted, because haunted is too ethereal. Hunted in the sense that I feel pursued by my own desires, and I feel like those are pushing me forward, and I don't regret that urge. I don't regret that drive, because everything interesting I've ever done and all the mistakes I've ever made have come from that feeling of being hunted.
Part of it, I mean, it's interesting where you've gone with some of this. I mean, you're a comedian, and you're certainly not a typical comedian, not just because you do many things, but you earned a degree in government and environmental policy at Dartmouth College. You worked at a nonprofit. You're fluent in French and some Russian and Swahili. How did you end up doing comedy?
To utterly disappoint my parents. That was pretty much the goal, which goes
Did
to
it
show
work?
you that they're not recent immigrants, because no first generation American ever utterly wants to disappoint their parents. No, they're thrilled. When I finally took them to the Tonight Show, and my mom had a 20-minute deep jazz conversation with Jay Leno. I had one, but all of a sudden this is like Shrink Aisha Day. I think that I was a really nerdy kid. I was very bookish. My parents didn't believe in TV. They were vegetarians. They were into transcendental meditation. I was the only black kid in my school until I was a teenager. I was obsessed with reading, glasses, science-y, Ray Bradbury, sci-fi obsessive, very, very nerdy. And I've been this tall since preschool. So during Black History Month, I was the exhibit at my school, and they'd be like, "Here we have a giant Negro in her natural habitat, and she's going to tell us about her people, and then we're going to touch her hair." So I was just an outsider from the time I was a kid, and I think two things happen when you're an outsider. The first is you really want to be on the inside, so you're always trying to figure out a way to do that. And for me, I think being funny was a way to do that. But also, I felt like I'm going to make fun of myself faster and better than you can ever do it. I'm going to beat you to the punch, because I got teased so much that I became better at making fun
When did you know you were funny?
Not until about 4 or 5 hours ago on the plane.
At 4 in the morning?
4 in the morning. I was talking in my sleep.
Funny.
I woke up laughing. No, I was drunk.
Really, when did you know?
I was doing shots.
You've been doing this for 20 years.
I think if you ever walk around thinking you're awesome, you're headed for disaster. I knew I wanted to be funny, and I knew I needed to be funny, and that maybe didn't happen until after college, when I loved comedy so much. I think people who want to be comedians do it because they see other people doing it, and it's mesmerizing and it's dazzling.
Do you also think that outsider status that you talked about, being the weird kid, facilitates being a comedian?
Absolutely, because it makes you an observer. And it makes you unafraid. What happens is when you realize that you're not going to ever join, you stop caring about joining. You become a little bit of an iconoclast. So being on the outside, you stop caring so much about what other people think about you. And I think a critical element of comedy is not caring. You want people to like you, but you don't want to be. You're not trying to ingratiate yourself. You're trying to. You're trying to break everybody. You know what I mean? And there's something in that about I'm going to break. It's a big head shrink for the audience. I'm going to break you all down, and I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to tell you my truth, no matter how humiliating it is for me. And in the book, which I'm not trying to shill, but I just wrote a lot about it in the book, I talk a lot about the fact that if a story that would make you send you just into a dark corner for months, mute and shivering and a pool of your own tears, is a story that a comedian would sprint into a bar to tell strangers.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was such a jackass. Let me tell you what I just did. So there's something about that bravery about being on the outside and then eventually just turning your back on the crowd that I think can make you a better comedian.
What does it mean when you say you want to break people?
Well, there's
sounds very aggressive.
It does sound aggressive. But comedy's an aggressive art form. I mean, it's pure aggression. It's walking into a room and dominating a group of people.
Even when it's Stephen Wright. Well, I got up this morning.
Stephen Wright is psychological aggression. You know what I mean? He's word aggression. He was actually probably the person that I when I saw him, I thought, oh, I want to be a comedian.
Smart, funny.
So smart, so thoughtful, so literate, and I thought, oh, this is an art of ideas.
Yeah.
First,
Well, you said early on that many people wanted you to fit into the stereotype of how they thought a black female comedian should be.
Right.
What is
you
that
know, kind of
stereotype?
ladies in the 90s, what? Oh, girl, drive it down, back it up, ba-dunk-a-dunk. Which is not to say that women who do that kind of comedy aren't brilliant at what they do, but you can hear from my voice that I don't have the accent. And I think it used to be disappointing when I
And
would
you were
get
letting
up.
down the team
I
by
was
not
letting the
developing
whole
it?
team,
Yeah.
like I hadn't gone to the meetings, I had missed the newsletter. I just missed that whole year of school where I learned how to do that. And, you know, if I can't do the neck thing, I'm very uncoordinated. So, you know, it was very hard early on in comedy because white audiences didn't quite understand me, but black audiences especially didn't understand me because it was at the height of Def Comedy Jam and people wanted something very specific from black comedians. And I realized after circling it for a little while that I could never sell that. It wasn't who I was. And I think for comedy, as in art, you become successful when you are purely and unabashedly yourself. And whatever that is, you have to inhabit it fully. And so when I just started to say, look, this is who I am. I'm a big nerd who likes sci-fi and video games, and I'm not going to apologize for it. That was when my audience found me. But yeah, you can't get up there and I know these guys would be one way off stage and another way on stage. And it just, you know, just like, what are you doing?
But you've also had, over the course of your career, the black people don't do that.
Yes.
Being said to you as well.
Yes.
And you were the first woman, the first black woman to host Talk Soup. You played the first long-running black character on Friends.
Yeah.
You were Ross's girlfriend. I
Yeah.
never thought Ross was...
First I was Joey's girlfriend, and then I was
That's
Ross's
right.
girlfriend. Yes, the slutty
Neither of whom were good
paleontologist.
enough for you.
Thank you, Jian.
I was, was that? Did you feel the pressure of, on the one side not being black enough, and then doing things that black people are not supposed to do?
Yes, yeah, for a long time, and you know, that thing. I mean, I still get those comments now, like you're not black enough. I talked about this on W. I don't know if you guys have the show, but W. Kamau Bell's show, Totally Biased.
had him on the
yeah,
show,
okay,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
a brilliant comedian, and we both had that thing, you know, kind of being black nerds or blurs, and people saying like black people don't do that. And I remember someone told a friend of mine who was getting food on set at a television show that black people don't eat bagels. And I was like, black people don't eat bread with a hole in it? What are you talking about? Like it makes no sense to me. So I've never tried to be, I was an outsider just by the nature of who I was, but I've really come to embrace that. And I remember, you know, finally I was like, well, I'm just going to like the stuff I like. I'm going to stop trying to please people. So, you know, in middle school, I was like listening to like underground New York punk and skating, and I taught snowboarding in college because I felt like, well, I might as well just do stuff that I'm interested in instead of worrying about how it's going to be perceived. And there's nothing more fun than snowboarding down a mountain in Vermont.
What was the turning
and
point?
scaring the crap out of white people. It is so much. People are hitting trees. They're so, it's like just like a Yeti went by. What's happening? Yeah.
What was the turning point where you realized that it's okay to be you, and therefore found your voice?
You know, I mean, I think in my 20s, maybe. I think it took a while. You know, there was always a part of me, especially early on in my career, that would apologize. I could get up on stage and I'd apologize for how I sounded, and I'd apologize for, you know, the fact that I seem so different. And, you know, here's why. Let me explain to you why I'm like this. And I'm lucky I don't have to do that anymore now because people know who I am. But it took a while. You know, I mean, that's part of being alive, right? Like slowly kind of figuring out who you are. But I think purely from a creative standpoint, again, like you can't create freely until you're creating from a free place. You know what I mean? So I just stopped just giving a crap. And it's been very freeing.
This latest book, Self-Inflicted Wounds,
Yes.
stems from a segment on your arts and culture podcast, Girl on Guy, in which guests share tales of failure.
Yes.
How would you characterize your own relationship with failure?
I love it. I pursue it wholeheartedly. And that doesn't mean I set out to fail, but I feel like failure, if you're not failing, you're not risking. And if you're not risking, you're not innovating. So I talk in the book about the idea of really pursuing failure with open arms. And people come up to me on my, you know, at my shows and go, you know, I want to be a comedian, but I'm afraid I'm going to fail, or I want to write a book and I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I'm like, don't worry about failing. You're gonna
Right.
fail. It's absolutely going to happen. But failure should never be a deterrent to doing something that you want. Success is not the absence of failure. Success is persistence through failure.
But I understand intellectually and logically what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure that I believe the part about, I mean, do you actually like failing?
No, it's not that I go out and say I'm going to wreck this. But what I
Right.
do say is this might go badly. So what? I'm going to put my heart into
So
it.
you don't sweat it? I mean, so,
I
so
sweat
if you have a
excellence.
terrible show,
Of course I feel bad about it.
For how long?
A few minutes. A few minutes because also now I've been doing it for 20 years, so I've had thousands of shows under my belt, and I know that one bad show isn't the end of the world. I feel like I look at people say, are there no learning situations? I go, no, there are just non-learning people. So if it goes badly, I go, what was it that I can take away from it? What that I did wrong? What was it that I did right? And then I move on with my life. And I feel like people who are stymied by failure, they just get stuck. You know what I mean? Bad stuff happens. I mean, there are people digging coal right now. Are you kidding me? You're bummed about your stand-up set? Suck it up, butthead. You know what I mean? So I feel like, again, when you get out there, anything you want to do in your life, just stipulate to the possibility that it might not go your way. And as an artist, and especially in the entertainment business, where people are constantly telling you that you're not good enough, that you're not pretty enough, that you're not tall enough, that you're too old, that you're too young, you're the wrong color, you're the wrong age, whatever it is, that you have to just accept that that's an aspect of the nature of what you do, and that it should never keep you from just going for it. And everything I've ever done, almost everything I've ever done, someone has said, specifically to me, not generally, but specifically, they're never going to hire a black woman to host Talk Soup. They're never going to hire a black woman to be a love interest on Friends. No one's ever going to listen to a show from a girl about stuff that guys are into. At 8 million downloads later, Girl on Guys, won awards. Everything I've done, someone's told me to my face, this is never going to work.
is that part of having seen the success and having experienced it? Is that part of what gives you the strength to you really do put yourself out there?
Yeah.
Let me obviously, you're very brave when it comes to personal matters. You're now 43.
Yes,
You
I'm
just,
very
just,
old.
just, well, you're not old, but just a few weeks ago on the talk, Aisha, you revealed your struggle with infertility, and it was quite emotional. I mean, watching this is emotional. You openly discussed your inability to conceive. Tell me what made you want to share that difficult journey with the world.
I am part of a large group of professional women who spent their 20s and 30s doing what they loved and not really thinking about having kids. And I don't regret any of that. Everything that I've done, I've been proud of, and I don't feel like I wish I could go back and change things. When I finally got to a point in my life where I thought I was ready and I was stable and I was making money and I could do it, I'd run out of road. And my husband and I decided to look at IVF, and we thought, we'll try this, and it just quickly realized it wasn't for me. It was expensive. It was emotionally debilitating. It was physically painful. And we decided to stop. And why I told that story on the show is because there's so many women that I know personally, and so many women who came up to me after that I said that and said, I spent my entire life savings and I never got pregnant. It ruined my marriage. I know people personally who have poured every penny they've had down a hole, and they still haven't gotten pregnant. And I feel like there's this cultural thing where no, just keep going. It's gonna go great, because people have this mythological idea about this happy ending that ends in a baby. 5% of people who pursue this get a baby, and 95% don't. And I wanted to tell women out there, and not just women, men and women, it's okay to say, I'm stopping. It's okay to choose to be child-free. And for all of the women that wrote, and a lot of women wrote, so many men wrote and said, thank you for saying something about this, because I'm going through this with my wife or my partner, and no one's given a voice to it. No one's given a voice to the idea that maybe it's a crazy thing to do to spend $300,000 trying to get pregnant and not get pregnant. And Kevin Frazier, who's a correspondent on Access Hollywood in LA, was like, it ruined my first marriage. It ruined it, So for so many people, we just want to focus on the magical, mystery baby, miracle. But for most people, it doesn't end that way. And I feel like it's okay to say, I'm not going to get on this crazy train. And
when you put yourself out there like that, and you were emotional on the show, and then it goes, everybody's watching it on YouTube, and a few days later, a week later, now it's been a couple of weeks later, how do you feel about it?
I'm glad I did it. I don't particularly like having feelings or being human in front of the people. So no, I'm glad that I did it, because I feel like it gave voice to a lot of people who didn't have a voice. But I also don't want to be. I'll tell you honestly, I don't like the idea that every time people see me, they go, "Oh, there's a lady who couldn't have a baby," because that's really not how I
don't want
live.
to be a victim.
No, and that's not how. It wasn't like I was, I did this joke that I'm like the woman in black, like haunting, holding like her ghost baby. I have this great life that I love. It's incredibly full and robust, and the choice that I made in my 20s and 30s to work and not have kids is a choice I don't regret at all. And I think that I weigh those two things out, and it was totally worth it. And if I'm dying to have a baby, I can just be like Madonna and just go pick one up at the store.
It's right. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. It's
Oh, by the
Archer.
way, Kevin Fraser's on OMG Insider on my network. Sorry about that. I got the show wrong. It's very early in the morning for
It's
me.
not that early.
It isn't. It still feels like 6 o'clock.
Archer, The Talk, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Is there anything you wish you could be doing that you're not already doing? Is there a grand plan?
Yes. Oh, this is going to be so fatuous and self-involved.
Do it.
So it's embarrassing even to say these words. I really want to direct features. So I've directed 7 short films. I've been doing a lot of rock videos. I just did 2 rock videos for the band Clutch. I've done one for Silver Sun Pickups. So I'm just doing a lot of short form directing right now, and mainly going to my friends and going, hey, I'll come on tour with you. I'll shoot a rock video and give it to you as a piece of fan art. So I've been doing that a lot in my spare time.
Right.
That's why I don't make it to the farmer's market.
Even though you can't handle being in the room with a rock band.
No, I know. Apparently, it's just too loud for me. Oh, my bones are rattling. And
Feature films, huh?
Yeah, I definitely. That's the
But that's
thing.
you can't. That's not an ephemeral thing. You can't be doing all this other stuff in direct to feature film.
But what you can
that
do
would
is
change.
work
That'd be a
towards
profound
it.
change.
It would
for
be
you.
a profound change. But I mean, people who have Jon Stewart just took 3 months off from The Daily Show to do it. And then I think if you look at someone like Clint Eastwood or Ben Affleck, people who have been actors their whole lives and have slowly moved into it. The great thing about being an actor is you're on set every day. You understand every aspect of the mechanics of how a film is made because you're around it all the time. If you're paying attention and not, like in your trailer, doing shots with Lindsay Lohan or something like that. So for me, I'm a fangirl. I love film. I'm obsessed with film. When people come on my podcast, all I want to do is talk about obscure Korean movies. So it's something. It's not just like, oh, I'd be cool to direct a movie. It's something that I'm like, this is going to be when I'm old and I really can't handle being in the same room with the rock bands. I'll be blowing stuff up on a set.
Such a pleasure to have you.
What a joy.
Thank you.
Oh,
Come back.
I said all of the words. I put all the words into this conversation.